I have been working in the HR field for about 20 years.
They enjoy studying abroad here. They want to stay long term. They want to get a job after graduation. What
Right.
are the long term actions they should do to make sure that happens?
That's a great question, and I get it a lot from students. So there are a couple of things. You know,
Kathy, collab video number 3. It
I
is
love
so
it.
good to see you again. Yeah, yeah.
Third time's the charm, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So for people who don't know you, you have an amazing background in recruiting and in career counseling for students. Can you share a little more about that?
Sure, absolutely. I have been working in the HR field for about 20 years. I started off as a
Mm,
corporate recruiter at the Bank of America, and then I moved over to Fidelity Investments, where I was an HR generalist, also a recruiter, and I led a team of recruiters as well. And then after
mhm,
that, I became a career counselor for individuals who had suffered a job loss. I'm at an
mhm,
outplacement agency called Keystone Associates. And then I have always loved higher ed, and it was always woven into my background. I'd
mhm,
get
mhm,
schools saying, "Can you come over and do a resume review night, or can you provide mock interviews?" And I've done it at all different schools. I've done it at, Harvard.
mhm,
I did it at
mhm,
MIT. I've done it at other schools in the greater Boston area. So
mhm.
I made a transition into higher education when I left Keystone, and I worked at Babson College, which is in the Metro West area of Boston, as a career advisor and instructor for students in our part-time MBA programs. And then I came to Northeastern, where for the last 8+ years, I have been a faculty member and instructor, career counselor for graduate and undergraduate students, as well as alumni in Northeastern's business school, which is called DeMoore McKim.
Mhm.
So that's where you and I met. And so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
been 8 years and still love it every day.
That is awesome. And I think you provide such an essential service because you get all these students who spend years of their lives, they spend so much money getting these degrees with the goal of eventually getting a job.
Of course.
And that part maybe they're missing. And it's people like you that can fill in that gap to actually help them
Try.
transition from grad student to happy employee or happy business owner. And
Yeah,
that's what
for
we'll talk
sure.
about today. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is the goal. Students get an education because at that point they're going to launch into their careers, and
Hmm.
every
Hmm.
job that they take, including internships, externships, analyst programs, I mean, they're all part of their narrative. So it's very
Hmm.
important to be strategic. And so that's what we try to do here at Northeastern as well.
Hmm. Absolutely. And start early because
Yeah.
if you're graduating and you think, all right, now I'll begin my job search activities, you're going to be behind all those students who were preparing months or even years in advance.
That's so true, Grant. That's such a great point. I think
Mhm.
that the job market is challenging right now. And
Oh yeah.
with everything that's going on in the world, things that are going on in Washington, I think for international students, they already have a lot on their plate. They've traveled from
Hmm.
all different corners of the world to come here to
Hmm.
Northeastern, wherever
Hmm.
their school is.
Hmm.
And so there are challenges with leaving home, family, friends, culture, food, lifestyle. They
Hmm.
come to the United States to get an education, and many of them want to start their careers in the United States for a
Sure.
few
Yeah.
years, and then eventually they make their way back to their home country.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
whatever we can do as, career advisors to help smooth the path for them and give them the best advice, that's what we really try to do. And I think that you're absolutely right. If students are waiting until 2 or 3 months before they graduate, they're just not going to land, because
Hmm.
there's a
Hmm.
lot that students need to do to be prepared to
Hmm.
embark on a full-time job search. It's very different than trying to get like an internship.
Absolutely, yes.
Sure.
And when we're talking about stuff you can do, we don't mean apply to jobs because
Yeah.
if you won't be available to work for 9 months, they're, like you mentioned before we turned on the recording, they're not going to hire you. So, what should students do who are in their sophomore, maybe their junior year?
Hmm.
They enjoy studying abroad here. They want to stay long term. They want to get a job after graduation. What
Right.
are the long term actions they should do to make sure that happens?
That's a great question, and I get it a lot from students. So there are a couple of
Mhm.
things. You know, I, by the time they're a junior, and probably during their sophomore year, they need to declare either a major or some type of concentration. So
Mhm,
once they
mhm.
know in terms of, this is what I'm specializing in, then they need to think about what can they be doing job-wise to fortify their resume, because the resume needs to tell a story of where they've been, not only education-wise, but I think in terms of jobs. And so students have lots of options. They can either do a summer internship, an externship, like through Parker Dewey or Forage. They offer those opportunities. They can do a part-time job, summer analyst program, or an on-campus opportunity, such as being a teaching assistant or even a
Mhm,
research
mhm.
fellow for professors who are teaching courses aligned with their career aspirations, whether it's finance, data science, marketing, or technology, and make every effort to make sure that those job experiences are in the United States. It's not that
Sure.
managers in the US are going to look down if you worked in, Europe or Africa or Asia, but I think that if you can get some US work experience, that says a lot.
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
and F1 students or international students should be able to obtain US work authorization since they're on a student visa. We
mhm,
offer students, there are two options that I don't think are just germane to Northeastern. One is curriculum practical training, or CPT. They get 365 days of that while they are fully matriculated. And then once they exhaust that or they are done, then they get at least another year of what we call optional practical training, or OPT.
mhm,
So
mhm,
they really get 2 years. And some students are enrolled in STEM programs that give you 2 to 3 years of US work authorization. So, if you really
mhm,
want to work in the United States, start to amass some,
mhm,
US
mhm,
work experience. And so that's the first thing I would say.
mhm,
The
mhm.
other is we all start somewhere. So think about taking on leadership roles in clubs or organizations on campus. Northeastern
Nice one.
has
Yeah, yeah.
dozens and dozens of them. And try to develop activities that will put you in contact with alumni or managers or HR recruiters from the
Mhm,
companies that tend to offer the types of jobs you'll be seeking as a senior. Many clubs, not only at Northeastern, but across campuses nationwide, provide activities such as networking nights, job fairs, company visits, professional panels, so students can learn more about industries, companies, and jobs, and also build out their network by meeting alumni, recruiters, and hiring managers. And students should always be trying to expand their network. I think that's huge
mhm,
because the power of
mhm,
networking knows no
mhm,
boundaries. And so I think that when you make connections with people who are in the industries, companies, or jobs that you are interested in, they can give you lots of information and they'll tell you about openings long before they get on company websites, job boards, and go to staffing agencies. So, the power of networking is super important. The
mhm,
third thing I
mhm.
recommend is take the time to do your research. Determine where you want to be upon graduation and start building lists of companies in the location where you want to be.
Mhm,
Because the
mhm,
jobs that you may find in Boston or New York City may not be in Chicago and may not also be
mhm,
in Denver or
mhm,
Detroit or LA. So, when like you have an idea, like I've had students say, well, I want to be between Boston and Washington, D.C., or
mhm,
I'm a
mhm.
West Coast person. I definitely want to be between San Diego and and LA or Santa Barbara or whatever that is.
Sure.
You have, or hopefully will have an idea of what you want to do. And if you
Mhm,
don't,
mhm,
then take the time to figure it out. Meet with someone in the career services
mhm,
area.
mhm,
Take online evaluations, talk to people who are in jobs that are of interest to you. It's very,
mhm,
very
mhm,
powerful. And many college libraries, including my own school, have
mhm,
amazing online resources to do your research on different industries, companies, jobs, families. You can get
mhm,
10K reports. There's all kinds of information that you can get. So earmark the firms and jobs that resonate with you and, really do your
mhm,
research to
mhm.
ensure that you're not only interested in the role, but you're also qualified to do it. Because
Oh,
the
sure.
one thing
Yeah.
that students do a lot is they run after jobs that they're not qualified for. And it's an exercise in futility. So
Mhm,
I think
mhm,
that's super important. You don't have to be 100% match, but you need to be in this job market at least 80 to 85%.
mhm, mhm.
Okay. So if you read through 5 to 7 job descriptions for like a treasury analyst or a marketing manager or some type of technology role. And you determine that you have some things and you're maybe a 60 to 65%, but there are some gaps, then, make an effort to take classes or obtain certificates to bolster your resume.
Sure. Yeah.
Time
Yeah.
as a sophomore or junior, even as first semester senior,
Mm-hmm.
to fortify your resume. So, the job market is super competitive. So whatever you can do to fortify your story is really only going to help you
Mm-hmm.
and be sure to connect with people who are doing the kind of work that you want to do next.
Mm-hmm.
Because you want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
it's truly your career goal. Because what you may see on a job board may not tell the whole story. People who are doing the job will tell you way more.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
just make sure that it's truly what you want to do. So those are my tips there.
Love that. One thing I'll add, you say you need to figure out what you want to do, your
Yeah.
major, all that stuff. That doesn't mean you have to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
No, oh
It, j-
gosh, no.
yeah, it is like what I tell, because I sometimes talk to college students who are feeling a little bit lost.
Of
You
course.
don't have to figure out what you're going to do till you're 65. Just find something that you're interested in enough and good at enough that you could see yourself being successful and happy in for at least a few years after graduation.
I could not
That's
agree with
that's
you
all
more.
you need.
Yeah, that's so true, especially when you're, 22, 23 years
Yeah,
old.
I had no
Listen,
idea what I wanted when I was
neither did
22.
I. Do you
Yeah,
know the
yeah.
number of times I've switched careers? I mean, you just heard a little bit
Hmm.
about my background.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
also a music teacher, I was a bank regulator. I mean, I did all kinds of things when I was younger. Here's the
Hmm.
thing, people change jobs 8 to 10 times over a lifetime on
Sure,
average.
sure,
And
sure.
so in today's market, people are frequently changing jobs, either because they like the
Hmm.
industry, not the job, or they've determined that they love the job. They just don't want to do it in healthcare. They'd rather do it in financial services or
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
else. So, if you think about it in terms of, I'm starting out, this is where I think I want to go. It's very few people who, do a job right out of undergrad, and this is what
Hmm.
they do for the rest of their lives. Are there a few? Sure.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
grand majority? No, no.
Hmm.
So thank you for bringing that point up. That's
Totally,
absolutely,
totally.
yeah,
So let's say graduation is getting closer. Maybe it's February, they're gonna graduate in May.
yeah,
It's starting to get to that, okay, I need to start applying time.
yeah,
What do
yeah.
you recommend?
First of all, I would say this. I have a lot of students who will say, I'm graduating in May, and it's January, and they're like, should I start applying? The answer is no. Okay. I'm a former corporate
Hmm.
recruiter,
Hmm.
and I can tell you they won't even consider
It's a
you.
little too early.
It's
Yeah.
a little unless, for example, consulting firms, the big dogs,
Hmm.
will post opportunities in the fall, knowing that the start date is going to be May or June of the following year.
Hmm.
If a
Hmm.
job posting says that, Grant, then they can apply.
Sure.
But for 90% of the job postings that you see, don't start applying in January. I would say it depends. A lot of students will say, I don't want to start right away. I want to take the summer off. My family has a home and, in the
Hmm.
Hamptons. I
Hmm.
want to enjoy the summer, or I'm going to be backpacking in Europe. Determine when you want to start. If
Hmm.
the answer is May, then sure, starting in March, it would make sense for you to really start applying
Hmm.
and interviewing and all of that. Because if it's a job that needs to be backfilled because somebody left, there's a more urgency around it. So I would
Hmm.
say
Hmm.
probably 45 to 60 days on average. But if it's an add to staff, it could be 90 plus days, so there's no
Hmm.
urgency
Hmm.
around it, even though they want to fill it. So think about that and back that off of when you think you want to start. So here are some other things that I would recommend. First of all,
Hmm.
you need to polish your marketing collateral materials that include your resume and your LinkedIn profile. They should really mirror each other. They shouldn't
Hmm.
be drastically different, although there are things that you can do in LinkedIn that you wouldn't put on your resume and vice
Sure.
versa.
Yeah.
And if you need some remedial help with your resume to make it sound like more of a story or add some results, go to AI. ChatGPT, Northeastern has its own version called Claude. I
Hmm.
joke with students that Claude is my new boyfriend.
Nice,
It's
nice.
really great. I will tell
Mhm.
you, you can say, here's my bullet. What can I do to make this sound more interesting? And ChatGPT will give you a revitalized bullet. But here's the
Mhm.
thing, I always say to students, it is a resource. It is
It's
there to
not the final
help
version.
you
Get an
know
informed second opinion. Yeah.
that and make sure it's your own voice. Because if you copy
Mhm.
and paste from ChatGPT and you can't speak to that bullet, it's not a good look. So use
Mhm.
it as a resource and an assistant, not to do the work. You are responsible for doing the work.
Mhm.
You can
Mhm.
also upload your resume to an AI with a job posting to determine all the ways that you're a match. So you can
Mhm.
either
Mhm.
fortify bullets or you can use it to help you craft a better cover letter. The power of AI is here to stay, and it is
Very true. Yeah.
really powerful. I am absolutely I think it's incredibly helpful. And, we will be talking about it more and more
Mhm.
this fall, which is really exciting. Okay. I also tell students you need to narrow down your preferred industry and jobs to no more than three options. You could say, for example, I'm interested in finance, I'm interested in, you know, healthcare, and I'm interested in, nonprofit.
Mm.
And I'm interested in being some type of business or financial analyst. You can manage that kind of a job search. When you
Yeah.
say open to anything,
Don't be applying everywhere to every type of role.
no, that's
Yeah.
not being
Yeah.
strategic. It's not being
Mhm.
intentional.
Mhm.
First of all, you're not interested, nor are you qualified for everything.
Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah.
you have to really be strategic when it comes to that. So, and you also, no matter what you apply for, here's what I tell students out of the gate. You will always need to be able to answer these three questions, whether they ask you or not.
Mhm.
Number one, why are you interested in this industry? Whatever it is, it's
Mhm.
investments, it's, healthcare device, it's, you know, consumer products, whatever it is. So why this industry? And
Mhm.
second is why this company? Why do you want to work here? What is it about this
Sure.
company that
Yeah.
attracted you?
Yeah.
And three, why this job? In other words, what's in it for me if I hire you? And your answer needs to
Mhm.
be, in this role, you're looking for someone who can do this, this, and this. Here's what I've done with some results
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
show them that you are can
Absolutely.
make an impact immediately. Okay. The second thing they can do is really or third, actually, create a list of 25 to 30 companies in the city where you want to be that tend to offer the types of opportunities that you're looking for.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then leverage LinkedIn to see if you have any contacts at the firm and reach out to them for information and
Mhm.
advice and
Mhm.
eventually referrals. Because
Mhm.
networking's not asking for a job or if the company's hiring. If they don't know you, they're not going to give you that
Oh yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think that if you make a nice connection with someone, and I'll tell you a story later on, it's really helpful
Mhm.
if you have those contacts in which to draw upon. So
Mhm.
again, networking. I'm not saying everybody gets their jobs through networking because that would be a lie, and I'm going to talk
Mhm.
about that. But networking is the most powerful. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Cast a wide net when you apply. Don't just, it's not just networking. There's other ways to unearth job leads. Company websites, job boards like Indeed, Handshake, Simply Hired. You can go to, there's Built in Boston, Built in LA, Built in New York.
Mhm.
There's all
Mhm.
kinds of sites that you can go to. Um, and then staffing agencies, no more than two or three in the cities where you are. Like
Mhm.
if you were thinking of, relocating to Miami, some staffing agencies can be helpful.
Yeah. Oh
They
yeah.
really can because they're networked. And
Mhm.
then the networking, leverage them all. I tell students, you don't know where your next lead is coming from.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's important. A really important point that you and I touched on before we turned on record is
Mhm.
it's important that students come up with a search schedule like 3 to 4 months out from graduation. They have to come up with a job search schedule and stick to it. Maybe it's Monday,
Mhm.
Wednesday, and Thursday nights from 8 to 10. Maybe
Sure.
they get up
Sure.
super early in the morning before they hit the gym and they're going to do their search then. It
Mhm.
doesn't
Mhm.
matter when, where, what hour, whatever works for you, do
Mhm.
it.
Put it in
Don't
your
work on your
calendar.
job search when there's nothing else to do because you'll never
Yeah,
get it
yeah, yeah.
done.
Don't say, "Oh, I'll just get it done eventually," but it's never scheduled. Actually block out
Yeah,
some time for job search activities. Even if all you can handle is an hour a week, that's still better than nothing.
absolutely, absolutely. And I can't tell you the students that really make it a priority, They land faster.
Oh yeah.
They just do.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell
Mm-hmm.
you too, if you're fortunate enough to get a summer analyst program or an internship, you know, do well, make an impact because
Mm-hmm.
I've lost count of the number of students who have come back. Well, we call it co-op here at Northeastern.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's like basically it's a 6-month internship. And
Mm-hmm.
students who really crush it, they get what's called a return offer, which means when they graduate,
Mm-hmm.
a full-time job is waiting for them.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, that's the dream.
That's so secure, such a
Oh
relief.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And parents love it, right?
I bet.
So
Yeah.
it's a good thing. So
Mm-hmm.
if you get the good fortune of getting an internship, externship, summer analyst program, even a part-time job, do
Mm-hmm.
well because there could be real benefits for you at the other side. So again, I've mentioned this before, but don't start applying in January if you're not available until either May, June, or September.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 3 months out.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the other thing, keep in touch with your past employers. Like if you did a summer internship between
Oh yeah,
October,
they
June,
can
and
write you
May,
recommendations. They can introduce you to people
absolutely.
in the industry.
Right.
That's a great point.
It's so true. And I would say for sure that, students who do that, sometimes they're asked to work part-time after the summer is over. Or they'll say, gee, if you're graduating in May and we'd love to have you full-time. And if they really like you and you want to take a month off to go backpacking, in Canada, they'll wait. So
Mm-hmm.
it's super important. So yeah, so that is that.
So let's talk about someone who has done this successfully.
Yeah.
Any examples of international students who had a strategic approach and it really paid off for them?
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you two quick stories. One
Great.
was an international student who got hired at Amazon. I mean, Amazon is a
Hmm.
very tough place to get into.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He really was dogged and determined, and
Hmm.
he really utilized Northeastern's alumni database to find people who were either working there or worked there. And he
Hmm.
he connected with two alums and made a really positive impression on them. And one of them walked his resume over to a hiring manager who interviewed him and then made him an offer. It's an
Hmm.
incredible story, but again, the power of networking.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
had another international student self-develop an internship at a consulting firm in Seattle through speaking with other students in the consulting club to see if they had any contacts that they'd be willing to share. One of his classmates told him about a small consulting firm in Seattle and introduced him via email and said, please talk to my friend here. He's in this consulting club. We practice case interviews all the time. He's really
Hmm.
interested. They had a conversation, and this student told a partner why he wanted to work at that firm and all the ways he could add value. He did his research. He could talk about the firm and what they're known for. And here's where I think I could add value for you. Would you be open to hiring me for 6 months? And he was really impressed and got an offer.
Wow.
So true stories. I don't make these up. It's really
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
I'll tell you, the students that are dogged and determined and really focused, they can do things that are really
Hmm.
impressive.
Hmm.
And I wish this for all of your clients. I wish this for
Sure,
all
sure.
of my students. I
Absolutely.
have
Yeah.
85 students last cycle, and I only have 5 left. They've all kind of found their way into,
Hmm. Great.
or they've decided to do a summer internship instead, or they've said, you know what, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not ready right now. I'm going to do it again. But by and large, over
Hmm.
85% are going on to co-op. And it's because of what we teach them and what we instill in them, and the fact that I'm always there for them to say, if you're running into any problems, holler. So,
Absolutely. Love that. That is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
All right. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for your time again.
yeah.
Always a pleasure chatting with you.
It's always a joy, Grant. Reach out to me anytime. And to all of you students, I wish you all the best. Have a great summer and a very successful semester coming up.